Hey guys, I'm Matt, and welcome to a very sweaty car episode of The Shifter. And we're missing Will today, but he's doing the college football content for the channel this week, and I'm doing the NASCAR content because he was busy on Sunday and I was busy on Saturday, so I didn't really get to watch college football, and he really didn't get to watch the race. So we're kind of just splitting it up like this, and next week we'll be back to our normal, us both being on the show. But this was a very wacky playoff race. It was held at Watkins Glen, and let's get into it. First off, Connor Zilic won the NASCAR Xfinity Series race, hitting his first career start. He dominated this race, really, and just kind of ran away from the field. And at the end, there's a bunch of overtime restarts. And it kind of gets into the theme of the week where drivers kind of show a lack of respect at the end of these things now, because a lot of wrecks went on for second place. Because Connor Zilic kind of, despite having to save some gas at the end, went off and hid on most of these restarts. So he won the Xfinity race, but it was kind of a foreshadowing for the end of the Cup race as well. But before we get into the Cup race, thank you to the sponsors. As always, of course, we're not sponsored by Gamebridge. I'm legally required to say that because I said it in one episode. Haha, funny joke. But we are sponsored by Bree, who made the logo. Hopefully it's in the thumbnail. Maybe, I don't know. Will made his profile photo last week, though, on the background of the episode of The Shifter that he was in last week. Go watch Milan's show if you haven't. Go watch Ken's YouTube. Go watch Ant's YouTube. And go buy Cheryl's clothes at Grateful Studios. He's doing some really cool stuff over there. But getting into this Cup race, it started with Ross Chastain on the pole in stage 1. But quickly in the race, some playoff drivers were running into trouble when Corey LaJoie, driving the Gamebridge car, would cause a big one on lap 1 of this race coming out of the bus stop. He would spin a car, Kyle Busch, actually, ironically enough, if you remember their ongoing beef from Pocono, in front of the back half of the field, and it would collect playoff drivers Denny Hamlin, Christopher Bell, and Brad Keselowski and Ryan Blaney. It would actually end Ryan Blaney's day, and this was a big talking point of the week because he just barely tapped the back of Brad Keselowski, and it ended his day, which again kind of comes up with this car. Sometimes it's really strong, and in some reasons it's really not. Ryan Blaney felt that he was not really involved in the accident, should have had an opportunity to fix his car, but NASCAR did not feel the same way because he made contact with another car, but it broke his entire steering column, and he could not turn, so he was out of the race because he had to get towed back to the pits, because obviously you can't turn down the pits and turn around the track if you don't have a still. Yeah, you guys get that. But that would end Ryan Blaney's day, but he should be fine. He remains 29 points above the cut line because, again, he had a strong showing at Atlanta and had a good bit of playoff points coming into this thing. Again, this is really big for Denny Hamlin. Christopher Bell just spun around, really didn't have that much damage. This was really big for Denny Hamlin because he came in already below the cut line. Now they're a lap down. And so now they have to fight back. He doesn't have a front fender either. So, again, this is a high-speed road course, so downforce is important. But Denny Hamlin in a hole again to start another playoff race. Ross Chastain would kind of just lead the remainder of the stage. Bubba Wallace and Ricky Stenhouse were also involved in the wreck and ended Ricky Stenhouse's race. Bubba Wallace would continue and have a solid 17th place finish for him on a road course. But those guys aren't really playoff guys, so I'm not really going to highlight them. Ross Chastain would lead the remainder of the stage, but of course at the end of all these road course races, you have stages, you have the little strategy at the end where they pit and they try to flip the track position because you don't go a lap down here. You see it at like Indianapolis and Pocono too, in Michigan, depending on where you are in the field. But the Ross Chastain would pit because obviously he's not a playoff driver, so he's just trying to win the race. And Martin Truex would win the stage. That's very big for Martin Truex because he was another one of those guys that came in below the cut line. Some more guys that got stage points were guys like Chase Briscoe, who really needed it. Chase Elliott and Kyle Larson, I think, also got stage points here. But those guys were already kind of relatively safe. Kyle Larson was near the cut line. And speaking of Kyle Larson, he would run into some trouble in the pit stops here, as he would get a pit road penalty. And that would mire him back in track position. It actually mired a lot of these guys back who tried to get these stage points. They kind of got stuck because, again, with this car, it's kind of hard to pass on road courses. So it kind of forced a lot of them back. But stage 2, again, would be kind of straightforward. Ross Chastain and SVG would lead and lead and lead until there was a caution very late in the stage. And then half the field had already pitted, but SVG and Ross Chastain, because they were so far in front of the field, were trying to wait to pit, but this would, again, throw a wrench in this thing, because now they have to save gas to be able to get to their number to make it to the end of the race on one more stop. And also tires, again, were a big story coming into the week about how they were supposed to wear more So their tires were going to wear. So that brings us to this restart in stage 3. And Chris Buescher was the first guy on fresh tires. And he kind of rockets through the field here. And after a few laps, is able to get around SVG, Ross Chastain, and take the lead and kind of set sail. And this seemed to be kind of a straightforward thing at the end here that Chris Buescher was going to win this race. They make their pit stops. And he's got about a 4-second lead over Shane Van Gisbergen until Harrison Burton blows the tire. Another playoff guy. He blows the tire. It puts debris all over the track, which leads to a late race caution, putting SVG and Chris Buescher on the front row. Rookie hotshot Carson Hocevar was also up front, having an excellent day, but really no playoff drivers to be found. At this point, the only playoff driver in the top 10 is Chase Briscoe towards the end of this thing, but that is very big for him because he really needs a good day today, because he came into this race 21 points below the cut line after his stage 1 wreck at Atlanta, where he finished last. So him running good and these other guys not is very important. So we'll see if he can keep it here at the end of this race. But SVG and Chris Buescher would get a nice, relatively clean restart. It would launch. Oh, I forgot about the stage 2 incident. The caution was actually for Denny Hamlin. He wrecked again. That's pretty important because he's a playoff driver, but he would again continue and get back on the lead lap. But significant damage on that 11 car. He doesn't really have another incident in this race, but he would come back and finish in 22nd, and he will be 6 points below the cut line at the end of this thing, which very huge because that's a lot of people's championship pick. I think it was actually Will's championship pick. My championship pick is also going to be below the cut line at the end of this race, if you remember who that is. But on this restart, here we go. The restart goes. Chris Buescher gets off without a hitch. Carson Hocevar actually gets around Shane Van Gisbergen. And then one of the most bizarre wrecks I've ever seen at Watkins Glen. Brad Keselowski gets turned. William Byron goes up on the side of him, almost into the catch fence. That was a wild wreck. And again, 2 more playoff guys, especially big for Brad Keselowski. William Byron comes out of this 25 points ahead, 11th in points. He should be fine if he has a relatively clean day at Bristol. There we go. Where are we going? Going to Bristol next week. Well, this week. But Brad Keselowski, not so much. He's 14 points below the cut line. But now he's rooting as a car owner that his car could still win this race. They would both actually finish the race, which is very bizarre considering the wreck. But again, Chris Buescher would launch off. He would go. There would be another wreck back in the pack involving 2 playoff guys of Chase Elliott and Martin Truex getting involved. Tyler Reddick would get turned, another playoff guy. And that would be the last caution of the race that would take us into overtime. Tyler Reddick would finish 27th, but he stayed on points. Chase Elliott finished 19th. He stayed on points. But Martin Truex, this was really big for him because he would have to pit, and he would only come back to 21st on the restart. And at the end of the race, he actually had some words to say, saying that these guys don't really show respect anymore and that he is basically ready to retire. He said, "The guys, I'm out." But he is 14 points below the cut line in his last playoff push here, and hopefully maybe at Bristol he can do something. That was my championship pick at the beginning of the year. Obviously I didn't know he was going to retire, but again, the 19 team has got to find a way to stop the bleeding regardless here, just to have some confidence going in the next year with their new driver and Chase Briscoe. And it's kind of funny because they're going to be battling for the last cut spot, but you know, we'll see what happens there. But Martin Truex is going to need a big day at Bristol. Harrison Burton also really didn't bounce back. He bounced back to 24th. He is 20 points below the cut line, but I don't think any of us really had him going to the next round. So that is not a shocker. Maybe he'll pull something off miraculous at Bristol, but I don't think that's a shocker. I think it's just good for that team that they made the playoffs. But Chris Buescher again would rocket into turn 1, but this time SVG would hold him tight and take the lead of this race for the first time today. He's ran second like the entire race. SVG would rocket off to the lead and run away from Chris Buescher until on the white flag lap in the bus stop, he clips the inside wall coming into the bus stop, gets really loose. Chris Buescher drives underneath him coming into the carousel. They're side by side, shades of 2012. Chris Buescher gets around him. SVG tries to get him back, but he cannot. And the guy who kind of got snubbed from the playoffs was able to get a win. Chris Buescher wins 2 weeks too late, really. But he does get a win, and Scott Graves, his crew chief, actually said after over the radio, "Screw the chase." And Chris Buescher, in his interview, kind of reiterated that, saying that they were going to play spoiler. That was their goal, and he would win his 6th career race and first on a road course, which is kind of shocking with how good Chris Buescher's been on road courses. But he would win. Shane Van Gisbergen would finish in the 2nd position. Carson Hocevar would finish in 3rd. And some other notables here, because, guys, I'm going to be honest, I don't remember the entire top 10 off the top of my head here. But some other notables are Zane Smith got 5th, and Corey LaJoy got 8th, despite the lap 1 incident. So a big day for Spire. A lot of only 2 playoff guys that finished in the top 10 with Chase Briscoe in 6th and Austin Cindric in 10th. That would launch Chase Briscoe from outside of the playoffs up to 6 points up. Him and Ty Gibbs are the bubble right now, and they are both 6 points up on Denny Hamlin. And like I already mentioned earlier, Brad Keselowski and Martin Truex are both about 14 points behind, and Harrison Burton is about 20 points behind. So those guys are all going to need some good days at Bristol, and especially Denny Hamlin, Martin Truex, and Brad Keselowski, because those are all guys that a lot of people had in the round of 8. So they're all going to need big days. And Brad Keselowski and Martin Truex are former champions of the sport. Denny Hamlin's arguably the best driver to never win a championship. So we'll see what happens at Bristol. Bristol will be wild, and it's going to be crazy for a Cup race like it always is, like it was last year. And remember, last year we saw Bubba Wallace come back on Kevin Harvick from a long way down and be able to make it to the next round. I think he was 18 points out. So anything's possible, even especially for Denny Hamlin, who's only 6 and won this race in the spring. And remember, Martin Truex finished 2nd in this race in the spring, and they're supposed to be bringing back that same crazy tire. So we'll see if it does the same things. So they both could launch their way in pretty easily. I mean, there's even an argument that Harrison Burton could if he had an extraordinary day. But it was another race last year where we saw a lot of playoff guys struggle. But also, Dale Jr. will be back for the NASCAR Xfinity Series race Friday night, their first ever race on the CW. So go watch that if you want to see Dale Jr. race at least one more time in the NASCAR top 3 divisions. So that's always fun that he does that every year and comes back and does one race. I know I love it as a Dale Jr. fan. But tell me what you think in the comments, who you think is going to make it at Bristol, who you think is going to miss it. I know this is a shorter episode, and I know I'm very sweaty, but I just got out of practice, and I've got a busy day ahead. But this is a shorter episode, just me, but you'll get to see Will in the college football content this week, and then hopefully next week we'll be back recording this in the same way, because hopefully we'll get a chance to watch both the race and football this week. I don't think I have an Auburn game to have to go to, because we work the tickets with the track team, and maybe Will be able to get free. I know he has busy weekends all the time. So, we'll see what we can do there. So hopefully we'll be back to kind of the regular show next week. But thank you guys for watching, and enjoy the races this weekend, and enjoy your week. Have a good week. Keep your mind right. Thank you.